Think you could never be vegan? You're in the right place. Think there's something big you'd really like to do, but probably too late? You're in the right place. My name's Michelle Olander. I think there's never been a more important time to move in a vegan direction. So I'm here every week to cheer you on, offer you actionable tips and strategies as you veg your best. Episode 167, Consciously Clueless with Carly. Welcome back, my Veg Your Besties. Welcome back. Welcome if you're new to Veg Your Best podcast. And you know, I have a business friend who loses her damn mind when she listens to this podcast, and I'm featuring another vegan podcaster. I know. Maybe she thinks they're competition. I think that they are my colleagues. They are my people. There cannot be enough vegan podcasters. That's my point of view. And today we have an absolutely super fellow podcaster who has published over 200 episodes since she started in June of 2020, Carly Puch. Carly from consciouslycarly.com, and her podcast is called Consciously Clueless. You glow differently, says Carly. You glow differently when your actions are fueled by a commitment to living more consciously instead of just going through the motions. She's a wise woman. I love that quote because it is a spectrum, isn't it? No one's completely clueless, and no one I know is completely conscious. And Carly just has us checking in with where we are, noticing where we are, just noticing when we're going through those motions. In this episode, we talk about Carly's work, why she started the podcast, how she works with people who want to move towards practices of sustainability and veganism and mindfulness, and how she creates a safe space. And because I reference it briefly in the beginning, this is the second time Carly has agreed to sit down and be a guest on Veg Your Best podcast, because last month we had a great talk, but I forgot to hit record. I know. Anyway, I think you'll love Carly, so let's not waste another minute. Carly's links will all be in the show notes, so just enjoy, and I'll see you on the other side of the interview. Carly Puch from Consciously Clueless. Welcome to Veg Your Best.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. Such a pleasure. And we're going to try this again. I just told you that I don't remember what we talked about last time because I was so traumatized about not recording it. So it's going to be like, I'm like a fresh, clean slate.
Yeah, I'm ready. I don't guest on podcasts as much as I would like to. So it's good practice, and we'll see what happens this time.
Excellent. And you should be doing a podcast tour. That's on my list of things to do, a podcast tour. But Carly, on a cosmic continuum of conscious to clueless, where are you today?
I like when that question gets flipped on me. I am feeling more conscious today than I have been for the last couple of weeks. It's been a few weeks full of grief for me in my personal life, and then on a global scale, of course. But I felt a little shaky there for a few weeks, but I also recognized such a difference than when I've had hard times in the past, that now that I've had these practices and this way of living that keeps me kind of connected, I feel more solid. Like I didn't crumble, right? I have these mindfulness practices and living consciously that helps me stay more conscious instead of being clueless at the first kind of wave of issue.
Now, when you say clueless, I'm filling in how I feel when I'm feeling clueless, when stuff's coming at you, when you're at that fire hose situation.
Yep.
Clueless is that sense of things aren't right out there. Those,
Mm-hmm.
and so I can't be right in here.
Mm-hmm.
What's it like
Mm-hmm.
for you? What's it like for you?
I think kind of a twofold answer in terms of why the podcast is called Consciously Clueless is that I wanted to create this space where people could come with questions about conscious living and feel like it was okay to be clueless. It was okay to be without the knowledge that you want, to not feel bad about that, to feel, yeah, I don't know what's going on, but I'm going to try and find out. I'm going to try and learn. So for me, clueless in that sense can just be, I don't know about this and I want to know more, but it can be scary to show up in a space saying, I don't know anything. And that can be intimidating. So I think partly is just feeling really like, I don't know anything here. And then on a personal level, feeling clueless and out of sorts is really when I'm not taking care of myself and I'm in the fire hose situation where I'm just keeping things like trying to put out fires. I'm keeping things at bay, but I am struggling to really feel connected. And that's almost always when I've stopped kind of doing the practices for me is when everything else gets so much harder.
So, one of the reasons why I really wanted to have you on the podcast when I found out about you, which was well into your podcasting journey, um, we have similar, we're very different generations, and we have very similar ideas, I think, of welcoming people where they are and
Mm-hmm.
acknowledging that you don't have to know everything to start. You don't have to be perfect about anything to start. And in fact, you don't get even close to perfect about anything unless you start.
Mm-hmm.
With your podcast, um, what what brought you to the podcast? Because you have what, 200s? How many episodes as of today?
Tomorrow comes 209.
Yay! Wow. Wow. So tell me, 200 and say 8 episodes ago, what were you thinking?
What was I thinking? What a great question. Um, I, in June of 2020, I kind of joke that if I were to write a memoir based on the kind of 2020, my 2020 life, it would be Get Dumped by a Bus, Start a Podcast, because I just had all of these kind of life altering things. And then I did a classic, like, I need to change something about my appearance. And then I bought a bus. And then I started a podcast. I was just in this era of feeling like I hadn't been doing things for myself for a while. And I loved listening to podcasts. I still do. And I love learning and talking to people about things that I can learn. And when I started learning about sustainability and mindfulness and went vegan specifically, I noticed a lot of online spaces felt like I had to be perfect. It felt like if I was in that vegan Facebook group, if I said, yeah, I would buy groceries for my mom that weren't vegan when she's sick. I actually said that and got kicked out of a Facebook group. And um, it just didn't feel like there was any space to show up clueless and to ask questions without feeling judged. And so the more I thought about that, I was working a full-time job still. It wasn't my heart work. And I thought I maybe this would be a good adventure. I think honestly was in the beginning of let's see what happens and let's create a space where people can show up and be clueless and learn and not feel bad about it. So I just Googled how do you start a podcast and 208 episodes later, here we are.
The barrier to entry is not too bad.
No, no, that's why there's a billion podcasts out there with 3 or 4 episodes published.
Yeah, because it gets more challenging after maybe episode 10 or 14. I don't know. Where for you did you go? I don't know. I don't know.
Honestly, and this is so corny, there's other things I've done this about, but I just love doing this. There are times where I wish it had been more lucrative or it was easier. That was more when I was still working my full-time job, but there was never a time I wanted to not do it because it's been kind of life-giving for me.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Because I do think that that is what you offer with the podcast. People have said to me a few times, why are you interviewing other vegan podcasters? I'm like, there cannot be enough vegan podcasters. There just can't be. And tell me a little bit about how you would describe your typical listener.
I would say my audience skews female. Although a lot of do have quite a bit of male listeners, but if I'm talking about the average, it would be a woman between 20 and 70. I mean, it really does seem to span the gamut in terms of age. I think some of that is based on topics in different episodes too, because I do talk about a couple of different lanes of things. Um, and I know a lot of listeners are not people who already live 100% vegan or 100% as sustainably as they can. I know a lot of people are coming there to learn. You know, there are some podcasts you go to it's like a peer conversations and learn on that way. I listen to some podcasts like yours and learn things about being vegan and about things that are different than maybe someone who's like at an intro level. I don't know. There's just different episodes for different things. I think both of us probably pull in people on different parts of their journeys. So I know that we're supposed to get really specific about our ideal listener. And I'm like, but what about everyone listening?
Yeah, tell the business coaches to turn off right now.
Yeah, exactly. They're like, you have to niche. And I'm like, no, everyone will listen.
Well, I said the other day, or maybe even this week, that so far on my podcast, I have never spoken with or actually met anyone who's been vegan since birth. So I want that to be one of the things that people remember
Good point.
about veganism.
That's such a good point. I said to someone the other day, you know, I didn't come out of the womb thinking about sustainability. That wasn't inherent in, for some people, that is. Some people, I think I've actually interviewed one person who's been vegan since birth because of their parents. And that's an anomaly, right? So, like, most of us are learning these things, and I just had a great conversation with a guest on my podcast earlier today, recording just about how this sense of shame people feel when they learn that they've maybe been contributing to the climate crisis with fast fashion or with not being vegan or with whatever it is. If you feel shame and you feel bad for not having done anything about that, then you don't do anything, right? Then that just feels really bad. But if you can hear those things and think, how do I do this? How do I do something about this? Or be brave enough to learn more and listen to podcasts like this, that can totally change the outcome.
It's absolutely true. If we could just berate everybody and humiliate everyone into all the great things in life, I mean, I'd
Yeah.
volunteer.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. And it's one of those things too that it took me a while to realize. And I want to share this because I appreciate you said, you know, we both kind of tell people come to this space where you're at, right? Do with that what you will. And that was hard for me in some ways in the beginning because I felt like, oh my gosh, the key to my health being better, the key to the planet feeling, why isn't everyone listening to me? I swear this will help. And even though I fully know that's not how I respond to things, my best friend since I was 8 years old, she went vegan when we were 12. And I continued to hunt and fish and do all the other things you do in northern Minnesota. And she didn't berate me or shame me or anything. She was just my friend. And I have to think about her all the time because in the beginning, I definitely was like, why aren't people listening? And then realizing and it clicking in of like, that's exactly what you didn't like about these spaces online. So it's a valid response, right? Being angry about atrocities like animal agriculture, it's valid. It's valid to be upset. But if you get stuck in that, then you never move forward and you're miserable.
Right. So tell me about your work. So with your work, you create a safe space for people to experiment and to try on and lean into ideas about sustainability and veganism and conscious living. And what does that look like for people?
I am so glad you asked, because one of the things after starting the podcast and being excited to provide a space for people to learn without feeling bad or feeling shame, I realized that I wanted to work more closely with the people who were responding to the podcast positively. Like, oh wow, I never thought about that. That's so great. I would love to try that. And I'm like, oh, but you can. But you could try it, and maybe it would be easier if someone helped. So I wanted to help people go vegan, but I knew that for me it was bigger than that. So for me, it was also, that wasn't the only lane I wanted to pull people in from, because for me, it's so also connected to the planet. And I have people, or would see people online like, yeah, I want to live more sustainably, but like, where do you start? And so I just kind of kept getting all these signs that maybe there are more people wanting to do this and more people wanting to learn about these things. But because of so many factors in our world, don't know where to go, don't have the resources to, whatever it is. So I started my coaching business kind of based on that philosophy as well, of letting people show up wherever they're at if they're interested in any aspect of conscious living, which for me is veganism and sustainability and mindfulness, because I think all of them kind of go together and build that foundation of a conscious life. So I work with people one-on-one. I'm also creating my first group program right now that I'm really excited about, that I will hopefully be announcing in the new year or talking about more soon. And I have some resources that I just love creating, things that I think would have been helpful for me, right? That I could have used. I teach yoga to kids and help talk about anxiety, because I think that would have helped me as a little young anxious kid. So I have a resource on my website that is a masterclass in what's mindfulness got to do with it. It's like, okay, so I get sustainability, I get veganism, but why do you talk about mindfulness so much? And I'm like, here, let's lay that out. Like, let's show you why. And another resource with practices about mindfulness, yoga videos, meditations, and some other daily resources to help you stay on track, because I just want it to feel like that's possible for people, whether it's the whole thing. They're like, tell me about veganism, sustainability, and mindfulness, or they're people who are vegan and activists and aren't taking care of themselves and could use some mindfulness, or kind of anything in between there. So working together means we start to meet. I tailor these sessions for you. We get to get your goals clear and connect to your why, because I'm sure you can speak to this as well. When you have a why that is really clear and why you're doing all of these things, it's so much easier to stay motivated.
Yeah. Because what I think, I'm sure you find the same. The problem is when you fail, not if you fail, but when you fail, when you flip out, when you don't get organized, when you don't have anything in the closet, when you don't have anything to say to the person who's saying, no, we don't have those options. When it happens, the difference is whether you go, yeah, well, that's a fail. That's like hitting the ball out of the lines. It's like missing the basket. It's like missing the mark. And now we just get back and we keep going, and we don't make that mean it's not for me. It's not for
Right.
my family. It's not for where I live. It's not for my income. It's not for my, there are objectively things that stand in the way of ourselves, and we need to meet those things where they are, and maybe not make it mean we throw the whole concept out.
Yeah.
So what are some of the obstacles? I always talk about stoicism on my podcast, but I would tell you the obstacle is the way. What are some of the obstacles that you find classically with your clients that get in the way, and they have to turn that into the way?
I had a discovery call a couple of weeks ago with someone, and I was so appreciative of her honesty. And it wasn't the first time I'd heard this. She's like, I know this stuff is important, but it's really hard for me to prioritize it among all the other things I'm dealing with. She's like, I get it. This I intellectually know. She's like, but I can't figure out a way to not care enough, but like get it in your brain enough to actually make lifestyle changes. So there's a lot of, but how, but like, but what does that look like? And I think this is a podcast concept for another day, right? But because late stage capitalism has created so much of our issues in terms of pollution, animal agriculture, all of these big things, they've also then said, and the only way to get yourself out of it is to keep buying stuff. And so there's this desire that maybe I can kind of find the superfood or find the sustainable thing that will be the easy fix. I think people sometimes also are looking for an easy fix. And that can be a tough pill to swallow sometimes when you're like, yeah, it's actually about shifting your mindset. We got to talk with our mindset and talk about, stoicism and obstacles. And okay, so if we have so many things in our way and there are so many barriers that our systems put in place, I always tell people, don't get in your own way. There's enough things trying to get in the way already. There are enough things you have to jump over. Don't add yourself to one of the issues. Don't add your own excuses and your own issues as another barrier when it could be an ally.
That's a great one, because we do have to make friends with what's real, with where we are.
Yeah, truly. And accept it and not be mad at ourselves and feel, again, go back to shame, because you just don't move anywhere from shame.
Yeah. Now, why do you think, I mean, honestly, I would love to buy my way out of every problem I've ever had. I think that's like, if you talk about late stage capitalism, that's the hope, right? That we can just find the pill, buy the item, move to the place.
Yep.
Somehow.
Yep.
Somehow. I know. I talk to people all the time who are very, very self-actualized, very capable people. And they're like, yeah, I'm not worried about that yet, because I think the guys in Silicon Valley who are a little older than I am are going to have that. They're worried about it more than I am. Let them figure it out.
Yeah, there's a bit of I think when you have a certain amount of privilege, it's easier to sit in denial too about things. And that's not right or wrong. It's what often what we're taught and what we know. But that is kind of a fact, right? Where I'm like, well, yeah, I'm in northern Minnesota where I'm not fully seeing or feeling the effects of the climate crisis. So I get to be like, I don't know, does it really matter? I'm not being affected. I can deal with all the other stuff. And we think of it as a someday thing when we have a certain amount of privilege versus the people that are already dealing with the effects. And that's something, again, we have to kind of accept hard things sometimes. It's not right or wrong.
No, it's just how our brains work, right? It's just we're looking for the evidence to support what we're already doing, because gosh, that would be easier.
Yes.
So nice to not have to change.
Yes, 100%. I mean, honestly, in terms of mindfulness and mental health, that's one of the reasons I think therapy has been so helpful for me, right? Is that someone else can help me get out of my own way and remind me that just because it's the easy answer doesn't mean it's going to make me feel good in the long run, which is what we talk about with veganism, sustainability, and all of it.
Yeah. Now that's an interesting thing, because I do think that it's in many ways a delayed gratification. The idea of moving your behaviors, your practices towards something that's a little lighter on the earth, that's a little kinder to your body, that's a little more ethical to animals you don't even see. You're not even aware of them. I mean, that's how far away they're kept from us. Right. The animals that are in industrial agriculture. So we have to somehow get some satisfaction in an area that's not actually sometimes happening. How do you help us tune into it so there's a payoff now, that there's a payoff today?
That's such a good question. And I've seen a few really interesting debates lately on LinkedIn about people that are in the sustainability world in whatever way, shape, or form, about does individual action or does, big collective global action do more, and often posing it as this either or. And for me, I'm a Pisces. I'm living in the gray. I'm like everything is a possibility here. And I think that's really true because it is delayed gratification. Some of these things we're doing or hoping that we're contributing to or contributing less to, we just have to believe and trust because you don't see immediately what that does. And I think that's where the everyday individual actions come into place, because you get to see a little bit. Maybe you get to see that you're producing less trash. Maybe you get to see less plastic in the recycling bin. Maybe you get to see less fog in your head or stomach aches when you cut out dairy or whatever it is. If you take individual action, even small, and celebrate the wins, it, I think, keeps you connected to the bigger picture, because I can't be fighting for these big system changes if I'm doing none of that at home. To me, that doesn't, I'm like, that doesn't compute, right? Like, does not compute. So I think that finding how you're making a difference in your own life first, that's why I think it's so important to like start with you. That very cliche, put on your own oxygen mask first, but it's true in these instances. That keeps me connected. I'm like, okay, I'm making a difference here, and that makes a difference out there.
And I think it also gives you a level of compassion for why it's a thorny issue, why it's hard for big companies to change, why it's hard for for governors and state governments and multinational corporations, why it's hard to change, because it's hard to change.
Mm-hmm.
When we're willing to put ourselves there, we're much more capable of understanding, at least not pushing off onto other people what the solutions need to be. You need to fix it. They need to fix it. Yes, maybe they do, but why don't you show the way?
Yep. It's a we, right? Like that us versus them is not working
Yeah.
for the world, right? That disconnect from how everything affects everyone and vice versa, I think that is such a good point, because it keeps you connected to that.
I'm a Gemini. So instead of seeing gray, I'm like, on the other hand, on
Yep.
the other
Yep.
hand.
Yep. Yep.
but the idea of structural change is not one or the other. Obviously, it's not you do it all or they fix it for us. But I remember talking to Henry Mance, who's a features writer for the Financial Times. He was on last year on the podcast. He was talking about smoking. He's vegan, and he was talking about smoking, and he says nothing changed structurally about tobacco, about marketing of tobacco, about availability of tobacco products until a certain percentage of the population got upset about it, said, no, that's not a great idea. The structure doesn't change until there's enough groundswell. And it doesn't have to be 50% or 25%, but it needs to be a group that's a little bit, maybe a little bigger than our group of vegans and sustainability people at the moment. There. But we're getting there. Exactly. And I think when you demonstrate it, maybe it's late stage capitalism, but people go, oh, there's a market for that.
That's what I've said so many times. I'm like, man, if it's even your bottom line at this point, you've got to be paying attention to this, because people are becoming more thoughtful and excited. I think there's excitement when you feel like you're making a difference too. I know we've talked about the other side of that, but there is motivation that comes from seeing that change you can make. Or, I have a friend the other day who was like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to tell you, I upgraded and got those unpaper towels. And, and she was just so genuinely excited to be like, hey, I did this thing because I realized, wow, this is so much waste and it's so bad. I could make a difference. And now, because she's excited about it, I guarantee you something else in that kitchen is going to change. And it sounds so silly, but it's like with paper towels was her entrance into getting it. And we all need an entrance point.
Yeah, because it's all awkward at first. The first second, the first 5 times, 100 times, whatever, it's awkward. It's like you reach for the wrong thing. You open the wrong drawer, Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm guessing that mindfulness is kind of for you the key to shifting your attention from the habitual,
Mm-hmm.
from the knee jerk, um, from the parts of ourselves that are on default and autopilot.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me a little bit about some of the mindfulness practices that you try to help people learn.
It's been, I've realized now, the common thread through a lot of the work that I've done. I worked for years and went to school to work as an advocate for survivors of sexual assault and dating violence, and did that work, love what I learned from people. Survivors are incredible people. It was also really hard work for me. I was not as ready with my mindfulness, and it pushed me to have to think about taking care of myself in a different way. So I started with the understanding of mindfulness, I think, in a place where I was like, I need this. I need to be going to yoga, to be doing breath work, because I am in a situation that is so stressful. And so it became a thing that I wasn't even maybe thinking of a mindfulness practice. Like I wasn't putting it in my calendar in grad school, like mindfulness practice in the morning, but I would get up and do yoga and try and journal my thoughts out before working on my thesis so I didn't lose my marbles. And I later started to connect that more and more to how you show up for yourself and the importance of consistency in doing that, and how that translates into doing all the things we want to do, all the people we want to help, all the ways we want to change the world. So for me, again, meeting people where they're at in terms of what I can actually help people with. I have a background in yoga and meditation and mindfulness and trauma informed yoga. So I really like helping people figure out a way to use their thoughts and to use their anxious brains or whatever it is as a skill, as a power, as a, oh my gosh, your brain is so active and you want to do so many things. Let's calm it down a little bit so you can do one thing at a time and really focus in. So it's a lot of breathing practices. There are a lot of yoga. I incorporate this into my coaching too, depending on what people want. I love doing shaking meditations and dancing meditations to just get all of that stored, stagnant energy we haul around out of our bodies so we can bring in the really good stuff. For me, a non negotiable, even if it's just 5 minutes, is a morning routine of sorts that is intentional and mindful. Right now, it looks like drinking water, writing 3 things I'm grateful for, and doing a tapping exercise. And that is my morning. Like that is my, again, even if it's 5 minutes, because when I do that, I'm set up for the day and I can fall back on it and I can remember, or I can look at what I'm grateful for when I'm pissed off at noon at an email or whatever it is. And so when I start that way, and I try and help people think that too, like if you have a solid foundation, all of this other stuff's going to feel a lot easier. If you can, like you said, when it's awkward in the beginning, or you're out and someone says there's no vegan options and you're embarrassed. A lot of that has to do with mindset and mindfulness and just being able to be in those moments and not fall back into old patterns.
Yeah, that's such good advice. And the idea of just trusting yourself when you have a morning routine, I think so many of us go, okay, that wouldn't be enough. What you just said, Carly, I'm sorry, that's not tapping 3 lines of what I'm grateful for and some water. Okay, no. What I also need to do, I
Yep.
also need is 40 minutes of my spiritual, this and that, and I probably need to wear a Korean facial mask, and I might need
Yeah, the wellness industry has made us believe that mindfulness and self-care has to cost us $7 billion
That's
to.
it. Of course. Are you telling me it doesn't?
Is this the first time you're hearing this?
But this is what I think, we overcomplicate so much of it. And this is why we don't trust ourselves. And we go, oh, yeah, I already tried to have a morning routine. I already tried that, but
Didn't work.
it didn't work. Couldn't keep it up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That is so common, I think, too, when people try and go vegan or make a goal into some sort of lifestyle change. The one slip up is forever you're like, didn't work. And that's just no way to live in general. I know that it's work and it takes some perseverance, but I think a lot of people understand setting goals and seeing results in other ways. In business, we're really good in our Western world about like business goals, and a lot of times like fitness goals, not necessarily tied to your actual physical body, but more like, what do I look like in the gym? We're really okay with setting those goals and sometimes being like, oh, okay, I'll figure it out. But with these deeper things that require us to be a little bit more self-reflective, it's easier to give up sometimes when you screw up once. I'm not faulting anyone for that. I don't want to say like I'm like it's really easy and you should do better. But I just mean like it is the easier route. It is totally the easier route sometimes. It just doesn't pay off.
Yeah, because this is how our brains are just wired. If we got a we stayed alive till today without doing all that, our brain it is wired to have you continue doing what you've been doing, because so far you didn't die. And
Yep.
that's all it's really worried about. So, and what you're talking about, your morning routine, Michelle, sounds very hard. Very
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah. And so all of a sudden, that's the thing of getting in your own way again, right? You think of all these excuses that you like know a lot of them aren't valid if anyone pressed you on them, right? But you start thinking of these things that your brain says, see, you can't do that. It's easier. Don't try. Ah, scary.
And nobody knows about it. Luckily, you didn't mention it to anyone. So we can just, no harm, no foul. Oh, it's just done.
Mm-hmm.
So when you have a coach, when Coach Carly said, hey, how did it go this week?
Right. Too. And I know you work with people too. And that accountability, again, we're good at seeing that the value of that in so many other places. Like I have accountability with seeing a therapist every other week. I have a business coach because I know how to talk about these things, but I didn't know how to scale a business. So I got someone who knew more than me, but it feels embarrassing sometimes, I think, for people to think about getting a coach in an area that maybe feels like you should be able to do it. Like, oh, it's just food or it's just changing my habits. Like I should be able to do that. But like you said, our brains are not wired for that. So if you have a goal, don't be afraid to find the right person to help you achieve it.
Yeah. In fact, I think you should always get a coach in an area where you actually are thinking you should be able to do it on your own. I don't think
Hey,
I don't think you should start with something like, oh, I know I can't do I don't know what would it be for me, like skydiving, or I don't know. I think start with the thing you go, oh, I really should. I have a coach right now, a great woman, Tracy Hoth, who is a organization coach for coaches. And so she helps me set up all this because, once upon a time I had 110, 25 podcasts. Now I have a lot more. I have more clients, and I used to be able to keep most of it in my head. And I told myself over and over, you should just write it down. Just put it on the calendar. You should be able to handle this. And the minute I brought it to her, it was just like, oh, such a relief.
yeah, a relief. Like let yourself be held and supported by someone who wants to help you achieve this thing that in your heart, in your spirit, there's a reason it's on your brain. There's a reason it's there. And every time I've worked with a coach, I'm publishing a book of poetry this
Mm.
year, a small book of poetry. And I know how to write, but I didn't know how to publish a book. So I got a book coach, a book publishing coach. And thank gosh I did, because that was so helpful. And now I'm totally prepared, have a plan, and I'm ready because I didn't know about that.
Yeah. There's something that you can bring in yourself. It doesn't have to be right. It doesn't even have to know what it doesn't know to work with a coach.
Yes. Yes. I love that.
You also have some other things that you're moving into. You're talking about a new course for the new year. When this goes out, we'll double check whether you've got a date for that yet. But
Okay.
people need to follow you, Carly, at what's your Instagram handle so I say it correctly?
Consciously.Carly, but if you type in consciously Carly, I come up.
Consciously Carly, so they can follow you on Instagram. So then when and if and when that course is ready for people to look into, they'll find it there. And do you have an email list? Do you have a yes, so we can go on consciouslyclueless.com.
.com.
Okay.
Yep. So consciouslycarly.com is the hub for everything. You'll find social media links there. You will find anything about programs, courses, and all my coaching. The podcast is there. That's a good place to start.
Great. So those links will be in the show notes. And there is something else going on that you've started, Consciously Cannabis. Am I
Oh,
saying it
yes.
right? Tell me about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. So I have been a marijuana user for health for a while. I have chronic pain and I also use it recreationally. I'm not going to lie. But that it's been a part of a wellness routine for me as well. And it's a weird thing in the United States as we're slowly in state to state legalizing things. So I hesitated to talk about that on my platform, but I'm in Minnesota. And once that was legalized, I thought it was a perfect time to talk about cannabis from the conscious living lens that I use. So let's talk about it with sustainability and the power of it as a plant. Let's talk about it with mindfulness. My first interview was with a cannabis and wellness advocate, and she's really fun. That interview is out and talks about her mindfulness routine with it. And all of the things I already talk about, it felt like such a easy way to pull in. And I wanted to break some of that stigma too and show people other sides of this like very ancient plant that's been in our culture for a very long time and have real conversation. Again, getting to show up clueless. You know, a lot of people are curious, but they don't want to Google cannabis on their computer. Like they don't want that record there. And I'm like, okay, that's okay. Listen to the podcast and learn about it from this other sense that is not the kind of stereotypes you hear about. And it's been a really exciting new adventure. I've already had people, even in my small town, like stop me at the YMCA and be like, thanks for that new series.
Oh, you're a star. Wow.
Oh, well, I don't know.
When they stop you in person.
I'm a very small town. I need that to be very clear, like very small northern Minnesota. So, but thank you.
Oh, that's great. But but it's part of the real world and meeting people where they are and for people to get to know you a little better and to decide how, maybe, maybe someone who was interested in that sort of usage
Mm-hmm.
be nervous talking to somebody like me. But if it's part of what they want, you become the person they would like to work with and like to talk to. And maybe, so you talked about a discovery call. Is that the first way people get to decide whether you might be a good fit for them as a coach?
Yeah, usually I get a direct message on social media or an email of just kind of like, I saw this, tell me more. And I chat a little bit, just making sure that we're aligned. Once in a while, I think, especially because I talk about mindfulness, sometimes people will reach out to me and it's like more what they're needing is therapy.
Mm.
Once in a while that happens, just, and I do talk about stuff like that a lot, so I get it. So there is a little bit of back and forth to make sure we're on the same track. And then you can set up a free discovery call so we can really chat one-on-one and be like, what's your goals? What's this look like? And how can I help you?
That's great. I can't imagine that there aren't thousands of people listening right this second who want to set a discovery call up with you, Carly.
Well, thank you. I very much appreciate that. And I can't wait to see all the thousands.
Yeah. So I hope my listeners, and there are all kinds of people to share this podcast with. So I hope you'll share it so Carly can talk to some of those people that we love.
Yeah. And I so appreciate you having this podcast and the conversations you have as well, because I do think sometimes things like veganism or whatever are seen as like this young hip trend that it's too late for me. And I mean, people say that at like all ages, but
Yeah.
I think that that's a common thread, right? So I love that you're having this conversation and saying like, hey, women who aren't 25, we can talk about these things. You can make a difference. You can still feel that difference. Like, I'm so appreciative of the space that you have as well.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a space I've inhabited, so I actually know it works.
Yeah.
Carly Puch from Consciously Clueless and consciouslycarly.com. Thanks for being with us on Veg Your Best.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, what did you think of Carly Puch from Consciously Clueless podcast? I'm so grateful Carly gave me another hour of her time to share with you. And I'm so glad that you, my veggie bestie, that you invested another hour of your time here on Veg Your Best. If there's someone you think would love to hear about Carly and her work or should listen to this podcast, please share it. Please share it. That's exactly how the podcast grows. I don't really have sponsors or a Patreon. I don't run ads. So if you like that there's a new podcast here every week to share the many ways there are to start, to restart, or to re-energize your vegan practice, please sharing it, linking to it on your social media posts, or even just letting me know in a message or in an email. That's the best. Carly's links for her website, consciouslycarly.com, and for the podcast, Consciously Clueless, are in the show notes. And Carly's active on Instagram. It's called consciously.carly, but I think if you just put in Consciously Carly, you'll find it. So follow her there, and you'll be up to date when she launches her course or announces her latest podcast, or when that book of poetry that she mentioned is finally out. So until next week, kids, veg your best. Veg Your Best podcast production, music, and editing by Charlie Weinshank. Thanks, Charlie. Before you go, it would mean so much to me and the Veg Your Best team if you would hit subscribe, leave us a 5-star review, or share with someone you think might be interested. Something about algorithms, it helps bump us up a little in the rankings, and that's the best way to help others find the podcast and for us to find our audience. So, until next week, make it easy and veg your best.